What's up, girls? Welcome back to Cross Gardening. This is episode number 2 of our soil series, and today we're gonna have a really interesting topic, something that is really important for you as a grower to understand, but also for you as a human being living on the planet. And the topic is gonna be water. But before we get into it, let's go and answer that question. Last video I left you with one joke and questions that I wanted you to answer. And the question was, when does soil get rich? And the answer is when Mother Nature makes it rain. Did you know that a staggering 2/3 of all fresh water on the planet are stored way below our feet, in the soil, in the ground? And we pump some of that water to be able to make it available for us to drink out of our tap, but a lot of it are not accessible to us as humans, right? And all this water is called groundwater, right? It's stored in the ground. And so you got those lakes and rivers and streams that are going down that you can't see, that are below our feet, right? It's pretty incredible, really, isn't it? This groundwater gets charged up every time it rains. When it rains, the water goes into the soil, percolates through the soil until it reaches the different layers of that soil, down to that bottom where we got that reservoir of water. Now, if you got a compacted soil, of course, the water won't be able to percolate through and won't be able to charge up those groundwater. Now, you see, when we till our soil, when we turn our soil over, we do break up the soil and we make a lot of space to be able to have some air circulation. And those air pockets, this is where the water flows through. But here's the problem with tillage. Remember those soil aggregates that we talked about in the last video? If you don't remember it, I do encourage you to go and watch that video again so that you can understand what they are. But really, technically, it's just a cluster of different particles that you can find in soil. When those aggregates, they hold the water. But not only that they hold the water, they also create some space and have some air circulation so that the water goes through. When you till the soil, you break those aggregates. And so there's a lot more chances now for the soil to compact over time. And if the soil is compacted, the water won't be able to flow through it. If the water can't flow through it, it won't be able to charge up those containers that we got under the soil. And if we can't charge up those containers under the soil, those containers are gonna completely dry up. And now you see, this groundwater is critical to create soil, because as it flows through under the soil over that bedrock layer that we got right down beneath our feet, it goes and weather those rocks and go and break them up into really small particles that goes and create the soil as you know it on top of the surface. So if there's no water in there, the soil is not gonna get created, so we're gonna run out of soil as well. So let's keep it simple, right? Without water, there will be no life on Earth. Like, let's take an example of the plants. A plant starting from a seed would need water to be able to sprout. Now, once that plant has sprouted, of course, there's more things that a seed needs to be able to sprout, but once that plant has sprouted and it's starting to grow, the plant needs some nutrients to be able to survive, to be able to thrive, to be able to give you the fruits and the leaves, or whatever it is that is edible for you out of that plant. Now, those nutrients, they can't cycle into the plant, they can't go into the plant, they can't be taken for the plant if there was no water. As the plant gets the water, it gets the nutrients in it, the water goes and flows through the plants, up the plant, and goes and basically deliver those nutrients to different parts of the plant. Water is also necessary for a process called photosynthesis. This is like the plant superpower, where the plant uses energy from the sun, acting like a solar panel, and creates its own food. This is crazy, right? This is mind-blowing. How come a plant can go and create their own food? Well, it does that. And the way that it does that, it takes an invisible gas from the atmosphere called carbon dioxide and uses hydrogen molecules from the water and goes and creates that food, and as a byproduct of that, it releases oxygen in the air so that we can breathe. This is not all. There's another thing that it actually does. That food that it creates something that you can taste, something that you actually love eating as well, potentially for some of you, something called sugar. Every sugar on the planet comes from plants, and a lot of it comes from this process called photosynthesis. All these sugar created through that process are organic carbon compounds, and they exudate, they oozes out of those roots, out of the tip of the roots, and exudate out into the soil. And guess what? There's other kind of living organism out there that love eating and munching on that sugar, except for me. And those are the bacteria. The bacteria, they love coming next to the roots, eating all that sugar. And in exchange for that sugar, the bacteria release some nutrients and some minerals necessary for the plants to be able to grow. And this is kind of like how the plants actually goes and pays the bacteria for all that work that the bacteria has done in the soil, because the plants, they can't take a lot of those nutrients, they can't take it in the form that is available in the soil. They can't. Hence why the bacteria eat all that minerals, all those nutrients, and transform them into a substance that the plant can actually intake, into a form that the plant can intake for them to be able to grow. You see though, those bacteria, they don't have legs like you and I. And guess what do they need to be able to move around in the soil to do all that foraging and land next to the roots of the plants? They need water. As water flows through the soil, it basically takes all those bacteria with it until the bacteria grabs onto something, right? Via chemical reactions, they don't have hands where they can just grab onto things like we do, right? Via chemical reactions, but they go and get stuck onto the roots of the plants and release all those nutrients, right? And they stay there next to the roots now, because all those plants, they're going to be putting all that sugar to feed them, and vice versa. They're going to release all those minerals and nutrients to be able to feed the plants. Water plays different functions for a plant. Now, we've spoke about a couple now, but there's another one that is really important for the plant, which is the structural support. How does a plant actually stand on its own like that? Well, that's because the water, when it goes up the plant, creates pressure against the different cells of the plant to be able to give it that support, right? So that the plant can stand tall. Now, another thing as well is you've probably seen plants turning around to be able to face the sun. The way that facing is done is also through the water. The shape of the water, the pressure that it creates allows the plant to bend in the wind, but also to turn itself to be able to face the sun. And this is all to be able to promote photosynthesis, isn't it? So all this about water. Does that mean that the more water, the better? Well, if you believe my grandma who says everything in moderation, well, it applies here as well. You don't want to go and suddenly go and inundate your garden to be able to give those plants and those bacteria the water that they need. They don't just need water, they need a lot of other things as well. And one of them is air. They need air to be able to breathe. If you have too much water in the plants, your roots, the roots of those plants, they're gonna rot. Okay, they're not going to be able to thrive because they need to breathe as well. They need to breathe air. The plants breathe as well through the roots. And those bacteria are the same. The good bacteria, the bacteria that you want to have in your soil that's really going to help your plants are the aerobic bacteria. And that means that they need air to survive. They need air to live. And so if you have too much water in there, you're going to kill your bacteria, you're going to kill your worms as well. By the way, the worms do need water to be able to breathe, okay? But you don't want to have too much. If it's too wet, too boggy, your plants are going to die, your bacteria are going to die, and you're not going to have a thriving environment for anything to grow at all. Let's talk about the other side now, having dry soils. Dry soils is not a good story either for your plants, okay? Because your bacteria, those microorganisms, they need water to be able to grow and be happy. Same with your earthworms as well. So without water, they're not going to be happy at all. Not only that, but you're going to end up with some erosions as well from wind, because your soil at the surface won't be wet. And so it won't have that moisture in it. It will be a lot less heavier, but it's also that water kind of acts like a glue as well in your soil. So it's going to be easy for the wind to be able to pick them up and put them and place them somewhere else, right? And you don't want that to happen. We already don't have a lot of topsoil anymore in the world, so you don't want that topsoil that you have on your property starting to go to someone else's properties, okay? So real water is important for that. It's also important because your cell might break up, so hence your soil aggregates are going to break up. So it's going to be really hard for you to be able to solve it. So never let your soil to be dry for too long. Now you're starting to get a feel of how important water is for the environment, for your plants, for your soil as well. When you want to water your soil. Don't water your plants. Don't go and start to water the leaves of the plant because you've read that on an articles. No, don't go too crazy. Yes, some plants can get some water a little bit from the leaves, but most of it comes from the soil. And the other thing as well, if you water the leaves of the plants, there's a lot of chances for the water to get evaporated anyway. So just water your soil. So what kind of strategies can you put in place? We've talked about mulch already. Cover your soil. Just grow a lot of things as well. If you don't want to put some wood chips on the floor, some sugarcane mulch on the floor because you don't like the look of it, then grow things. You can grow ground covers. You can grow a lot of trees as well so that it creates some shade so that there's less evaporation possible. Just grow some stuff, okay? And your plant will be happy for that. And your soil will be happy for that. Your bacteria will thank you with all the nutrients they're going to bring to the things that you're growing as well. Another thing is you can have some catchment, water catchment, right? Have some rain barrels. You can put that under your gutters around your house, right? You can also create some swells. I'm not going to get into the details of swells. Now that you know that there's something called swells, just go and Google it, okay? And that will allow to retard water, to pacify water, to really have the water relax a little bit on the soil that you may have in your property and flow down into the ground as well. There's many different strategies out there for you to be able to get the water, but what you want to do is really the best place to store that water is in your soil. There's a lot more that we could be covering about the benefit of water in soil, and I hope that you really get now the importance of water in soil, okay? So that you can start putting your strategies together, you can start talking to people about water and saving a little bit more water on your property. And if it really got you into action, just hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, just hit that subscribe button as well. Now, I don't want to leave you with one joke. Okay, and this one is a good one. It's a better one than the last one, I promise. And it is, what do you call a mentally deranged, carbon-free transportation loving person? Now, let me know your creative answer below in the comments. I'd love to read them. And look, like I say all the time, it's never been a better time to become a gardener. So join the community. Let's share that knowledge to a lot of people around you. So share those videos, share the knowledge that you learn in this as well. And I will see you in the next video.